For many of you, this story will give you a chance to see many things in your life from a completely different perspective. When you watch until the end, leave a comment with the most valuable insights you took from this story. Meet Sophia. Her story will change the way you see life. If you had scrolled through my Instagram feed in late 2024, you would have seen a masterpiece. My life was a curated gallery of quiet luxury. My morning routine was filmed with the precision of a Wes Anderson movie. The slow pour of oat milk into a handmade ceramic mug, the soft sunlight hitting the gold leaf on my latest illustration, the perfectly tousled linen sheets that cost more than a month's groceries in my hometown. I was 28, a freelance creative director, and to my 50,000 followers, I had solved the equation of existence. But here is what the lens didn't capture. When I posted that photo of my $9 morning latte, I was doing a frantic mental calculation in my head. Which credit card still has enough room for a $4 transaction? I was living in a $3, $500 a month apartment with exactly $14.62 in my checking account. I was a financial ghost haunting my own expensive life. My name is Sophia. And for 3 years, I wasn't an artist. I was a performance piece. I was a victim and a perpetrator of the most dangerous lie of the digital age. Fake it until you make it is a viable financial strategy. Today, we are going to perform a brutal autopsy on my curated collapse. We are going to talk about the aesthetic tax, the dopamine debt cycle, and the terrifying moment my gold-plated world hit a brick wall of reality. If you feel like you're performing your success rather than possessing it, if you're grinding for a freedom you haven't defined, this is your rescue mission. The psychology of the image. Why do we do it? We live in an era where looking the part has been rebranded as manifesting. We are told that to attract high-value clients, we must look like high-value people. But there is a massive difference between investing in your business and subsidizing your insecurity. I was doing the latter. I wasn't buying a camera to take better photos. I was buying a camera so other photographers would think I was successful. I was paying a premium for belonging. To understand how I ended up $45,000 in debt, you have to understand the identity of achievement. I didn't grow up with money. I grew up in a house where everything was functional. My clothes were from department stores. Our furniture was from garage sales. I didn't feel poor, but I felt invisible. In my teenage mind, money wasn't just about buying things, it was about being seen. When I moved to San Francisco and entered the creative industry, I realized that your vibe is your currency. If you walked into a meeting with a cracked iPhone or a non-designer bag, you were treated differently. I started to believe that my talent was secondary to my presentation. The first layer of the cage, the $1,200 necessity. It started with a chair. Not just any chair, a refurbished Herman Miller Aeron. I'm a professional now, I told myself. I need back support. It was $1,200. I put it on a fresh credit card. Then it was the desk. Then the minimalist monitor. Then the $2,000 MacBook Pro. By the time I was 26, I had $8,000 in business debt. I justified it as capital expenditure. But here is the trick. Capital expenditure is supposed to generate a return on investment, ROI. My chair didn't make me draw faster. My MacBook didn't make my ideas better. They just made me feel like I belonged in the room. The architecture of the It Girl apartment. The biggest mistake was the lease. I found a loft that was a dream. Hardwood floors, giant windows, creative energy. The rent was $3,500. At the time, I was making about $5,500 a month after taxes. Math check. That's 63% of my income on rent. I can't film content in a place with beige carpets, I argued with my inner voice. This apartment is my studio, it's a marketing expense. But marketing is supposed to bring in revenue. This apartment was only draining it. To fill that apartment, I needed curated furniture. To match the furniture, I needed curated clothes. To match the clothes, I needed curated friends. This is the aesthetic tax. It's the hidden cost of maintaining a certain social rank. It's the $15 cocktails you buy because that's where the networking happens. It's the $200 hair appointments because you have to look polished. It's a slow-motion car crash for your savings account. By the time I turned 29, I was a master of financial choreography. I had 7 credit cards, each with a different color and a different limit. I knew the closing dates of every statement like they were birthdays. The Sunday night dance. Every Sunday, I would sit on my expensive rug with my laptop and perform the transfer dance. Card A has $200 left. Use it to buy groceries. Card B is at its limit. Move $100 from my checking, which I just got from a small freelance gig, to cover the minimum payment so the interest doesn't spike. Card C has a balance transfer offer at 0% for 6 months. Move $3,000 from Card D to Card C to buy myself some breathing room. It was a full-time job. I was working 50 hours a week at my actual job just to fund the interest on my past mistakes. I wasn't working for my future. I was working to pay for the Sophia of 6 months ago. The secret tax, the loneliness of debt. The most toxic part of debt isn't the numbers, it's the secrecy. I couldn't tell my friends. My power couple friends would invite us to Napa for a weekend. The hotel was $600 a night. I'd say sure while my stomach did somersaults. I'd spend the whole weekend laughing in photos, wearing a new dress I'd return on Monday, while inside I was suffocating. I felt like a fraud. Every like on Instagram felt like a mockery. People would comment, "You're such an inspiration," and I would think, if you knew I didn't have enough money to buy a bus ticket, you'd be horrified. I was living in a dopamine debt cycle. Because my life felt so stressful and out of control, I would treat myself to feel better. I'd buy a $50 candle or a $100 dinner. I work so hard, I'd tell myself. I deserve this. I was using the very thing that was killing me, spending to try and cure the pain of being broke. I'd become a slave to my own overhead. I couldn't take a risk on a new creative project. I couldn't say no to a toxic, demanding client because I needed their deposit to pay Card E. I was a high-performance engine running on fumes. The end of the lie didn't happen in a lawyer's office or a bankruptcy court. It happened at a trendy brunch spot in the Mission District. It was a celebration for a friend who had just hit 100,000 followers. The table was a sea of pastel colors, avocado toast with microgreens, lavender mimosas, and designer bags sitting casually on the chairs. The content was being filmed from every angle. I was there, looking perfect in a silk blouse, laughing at every joke. When the bill came, nearly $500 for the group, the birthday girl said, "Let's just split it evenly." My heart stopped. I had $42 in my checking account. I knew my primary Visa was at its limit. I prayed that my backup MasterCard, which I had just paid $150 toward, would have enough room. I handed it to the waiter with a steady hand and a fake smile. He came back 3 minutes later. He didn't say it out loud, but he laid a small slip of paper next to me. It was red. It said, "Declined." "Oh, that's weird," I laughed, my voice an octave too high. "Probably a fraud alert. I've been traveling." I handed over my second card. The waiter returned. Declined. The silence at the table was physical. It was heavy. I looked at my friends, people I had spent thousands of dollars to impress, and I saw a mix of pity, judgment, and awkwardness. The digital mirage shattered. In that moment, I wasn't the successful creative director. I was a girl who couldn't pay for her own eggs. Eventually, a friend paid for me. "Don't worry about it, Soph," she said. But the look in her eyes, it was the look you give a stray dog. The walk of shame. I didn't have $12 for an Uber. I walked home. It took an hour and 15 minutes. As I walked past the luxury boutiques and the high-end furniture stores, I realized I didn't own any of it. I didn't even own the clothes on my back. The bank did. I got to my beautiful white-walled apartment, sat on the floor, and cried until I couldn't breathe. I looked at my Pinterest life and saw it for what it was, a museum for an ego that was now starving. I was $45,000 in debt. I had no savings, and I had spent 3 years of my life building a beautiful lie. The next morning, I didn't post a photo of my coffee. I took a photo of the declined receipt. I sat on my bed for 3 hours, my thumb hovering over the post button. If I did this, the it girl was dead. The brand was gone. I hit post. The caption was simple. "I am $45,000 in debt. My cards were declined at brunch yesterday. I have been pretending to be successful while drowning in shame. I am done. I am starting over." I expected to be canceled. I expected the 50,000 followers to vanish. Some did. But within an hour, my DMs were flooded. Thousands of messages. I have $20,000 in debt and I've never told my husband. I'm a partner at a firm and I can't afford my mortgage. Thank you for being the first person to tell the truth. It turns out the aesthetic is a collective hallucination. We are all just performers in a play where the only winner is the credit card company. The Great Liquidation. I decided to perform a financial autopsy. I printed out 3 years of bank statements. I took a red highlighter and marked every ego expense. The paper was bleeding. I had spent enough on Vibe to buy a house in a cheaper state. I spent the next month selling my life. The Herman Miller chair sold for $600. The designer bags sold on resale sites. The $2,000 sofa sold on Craigslist. I turned my status into cash. Every time I sold an item, I felt lighter. I wasn't losing my identity, I was reclaiming my freedom. The move, I broke my lease. I paid the penalty with the money from the furniture. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in a boring neighborhood. It had beige carpets and fluorescent lights. It was ugly by Instagram standards, but the rent was only $1,200. For the first time in years, I could breathe. The asset shift, from paper to physical. As I started to pay off my debt using the debt snowflake method, paying off the smallest debts first to gain momentum, my relationship with money changed. I stopped trusting digital numbers. I started buying physical silver. Why silver? Because silver is honest money. When you have $100 in a banking app, it's just a digit. You can spend it in one click on a pair of shoes you don't need. But when you hold a 10-ounce silver bar in your hand, you feel its weight. It's heavy. It's real. You can't spend it on a whim at a brunch table. Every month after paying my bills, I would buy one silver coin or one small bar. I'd put it in a wooden box on my desk. It didn't have an aesthetic, it had intrinsic value. It was the first time in my life I felt truly wealthy, even though I had less stuff. I was building a fortress of wealth instead of a flash of wealth. I am 30 years old now. It's been 2 years since that brunch. My debt is gone. My credit cards are cut into pieces and buried in the past. The comparison? Old Sophia lived in a $3,500 loft, had $45K debt, woke up at 3 a.m. with panic attacks, spent 8 hours a day on content. New Sophia lives in a $1,200 studio, has $25K in savings and physical assets, wakes up at 7 a.m. with a quiet heart, spends 8 hours a day on actual art. I realized that true success is the ability to walk away. I can say no to a client who treats me poorly. I can take a month off to travel on a budget in cash. I can sleep through the night because no one owns my future but me. The lessons for the Adam tells audience. 1. Kill the fake it culture. If you have to borrow money to look successful, you are actually failing. True success is the ability to say, I can't afford that, without a shred of shame. Shame is for thieves, not for people who are being honest with their budget. 2. Audit your aesthetic tax. Look at your life. How much are you paying to maintain an image for people who don't actually care about you? If you stop posting on social media today, would you still want that $2,000 sofa? 3. Invest in the real, get away from digital wealth that can be eaten by inflation or interest. Buy things with intrinsic value. Buy time. Buy physical assets. Buy the ability to say no. 4. Accept the ugly years. You might have to live in a place you don't like, drive a car that isn't cool, and wear the same 5 outfits for a year to find your freedom. Do it. The view from a small apartment you own is 1,000 times better than the view from a penthouse you're renting with debt. If you're watching this right now and you feel that familiar knot in your stomach, the fear of the next statement, the shame of the declined screen, the exhaustion of the performance, listen to me. You are allowed to exit the race. You don't have to wait for a collapse. You don't have to wait for the declined receipt. You can choose to be ordinary today so that you can be free tomorrow. My name is Sophia. I traded my image for my freedom. I traded my followers for my future. And for the first time in my 30 years, I finally like the person I see in the mirror. Not because she looks like a magazine cover, but because she's real. The bank account is growing. The heart is quiet. The performance is over. Go start your own audit. Your future is waiting for you to stop pretending. What is one thing you are holding on to only because of status? What would happen if you sold it today? Leave a comment below. Let's start the great audit together. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.